Recorded live with little or no editing. It's Defense Up. I'm Run 7. How you doing? We're going over DamianBroccum's defense today. It's a Crucible defense. We had Pathfinder Gaming, Rolf Curran, and RichonShips in chat today. So if you don't like any of the recommendations that I give, I want you to hunt those guys down and complain to them, not me. I'm just a mouthpiece here. Okay, DamianBrockum is 14.5 million TCP. And today, we're going to be talking about cutoff points for investments in certain teams and whether or not you should be using the Tangled Web teams, whether you're punching up in your Crucible match or punching down in your Crucible matches. You know, where you appear in the rankings will dictate whether or not you want to be fielding that defense or using it for offense. So team number 1 is an uncanny team. We're actually going to be moving this to room number 3. Room number 3 has a base model YA team. It's 103 power, like nothing. So we're going to get that out of room 3 and we're going to move this over there. And the reason we're going to move this into room 3 is so that we don't have to make too many changes. We're going to change Cyclops to a Raider just so that we can get 2 and 2 with ISOs and with vulnerables and strikers. And we're going to move Colossus in between Cyclops and Storm. Yeah, so it'll go Cyclops, Colossus, Storm, then probably, I guess, doesn't really matter. It could probably be Magic or Phoenix. Doesn't really matter at that point in time because we're taking our tanks and moving them around all funky. The idea is it'll be in room 3, and the portable shield device will be passing positive effects to your hitters, which is Cyclops and Storm. This team's going to get rolled. It's nothing to get excited about. Don't build Uncanny. It's over the hill. The last season gave it a little bit of a boost. It's dead in the water this season, and we have no idea what's happening next season. So don't be building this team by any means. But since it's here, we're going to do the best that we can. We're going to move it to room 3. We're going to tweak the placement. We're going to choose out 1 ISO on Cyclops. You can also run Colossus as a skirmisher. I think he does very well as a skirmisher, especially if you have T4s in him, because he does counterattacks and stuff like that when he has the T4s in him. Get a little more value, but that's it for the team. So for me, this is actually a C. It's not very exciting. We do need to make a lot of tweaks, and we need to move it into room 3, which is totally being wasted by an empty shell of a team. All right, team number 2 is the Bionic Avengers. This team was very loudly not mentioned in the blog post about incursion raids, which makes us think that they will not be used for the upcoming incursion raids. So I'm warning people, look at this team very critically and ask yourself, do I want to be investing in it anymore, or can I squeak by with whatever level they're built at right now? Because I have a feeling that they're not going to be used, and you're going to build them up so much for Doom 3 point whatever, and then incursion raids are going to come around and they're not going to hold no matter what, and you're going to have to dump this team and start fresh. So I think you should save the resources if you can, and simply build this team big enough to get by with whatever your alliance is really wanting you to do. All right, as for how you should place them and build them, this is done perfectly fine. I like the ISOs, I like the placement. It's just whether or not you want to build them bigger or not. And for DamianBrockum, it's just depending on whether he's able to get through his raids or not. So for me, this is a filler team. It's done well. There's no wasted resources here, so I'm going to go ahead and give it an A. Moving on to team number 3. This is the YA team we were talking about. If you were to build this team, and you shouldn't build this team, they're way too old now. Great team, just too late, so don't build them. Move Miss Marvel out of the corner because of the majority of counters like to put a disrupt on her, and you don't want that happening. So move her out of the corner. Otherwise, the ISOs and placement is good enough. And then, of course, it's only 180,000. It's not stopping anything. So that's why we're going to swap this over to room 1, because it's just total filler. We're going to go with a C for this team also, because we need to move it out of this room and the placement's wrong. Yeah, so there we go. Team number 4 is the Unlimited team. Here we had some interesting topics. We thought about maybe moving this one to room 3, putting a Fortifier Zemo adjacent to Rogue and Gambit, giving them the positive effects, that immunity, helping to keep Rogue safe. But honestly, you can do that Zemo Fortifier trick in room 3 with just about any team. So what we actually came down to is that the best thing to do with this wonky power level team is to keep Rogue where she's at, but move Gambit down here to where Fire Chicken is, as far away from Rogue as possible, and then pump up the numbers on Gambit and make him as big as you can. Then people will come in and see this number here and be fooled by it.
Promised I could get better drops.
Thanks, Chad.
You said you were going to give me better drops.
Really appreciate that. I got to remember to turn those things off. Okay, so that way they are fooled by the number up here, and Rogue and Gambit are the kind of the powerhouse of this team. Remember, Dazzler has some good things in her kit. If you can build up the rest of this team just enough to get the proper T4s or even just the ability level 6s going on them, then you should do that if you can. She's got a cleanse. I think he's got a bunch of positive effects that he, or some stat boosts that he gives the team or something. They all do a little bit of something. So make sure that you can get them built up, but you don't have to dump the gear into them right now if you don't want. It's mostly Gambit and Rogue that are doing all the control and damage from this team. So that's what you could do to make it better is for placement ISOs and stuff. Normally this would be fine if the team was evenly balanced. You could maybe put Fire Chicken in place of Dazzler so that maybe for a Gamma counter, but then there's the SA Dorm Kestrel counter that would get it, so it doesn't really matter. Basically, we're just trying to save Damian some resources here by doing what we can. All right, for me, this is an A-. It's not too bad. It's underdeveloped at this point. Team number 5. Now this is where the rubber meets the road. Damian needs to ask himself, am I at the bottom of the rankings in my Crucible, or am I at the top? When I go up against those 7 other people, are they bigger than me or are they smaller than me? And if they're all bigger than him, then he definitely needs to pull these 2 offensive teams off of his defense and use them to mirror what he sees here or to beat other big teams with his Eternals or whatever. Because you can use just the Web Warriors, I'm sorry, not the Web Warriors, just the Tangled Web to defeat this team in a mirror. You can use Eternals to beat some really big teams elsewhere. So there's 2 offensive things. However, if he's the biggest in his Crucible tournaments, then he should definitely keep this team here because somebody else won't have a big enough roster to go around it without the mirror. So that's kind of it. You're either the little guy and you need to use this to mirror it, or you're the big guy and you have enough stuff in your roster that you can double tap it and go around with other things. So that's where we're at on that. I mean, worst case scenario, neither of you can clear each other's room and you just ignore room 5 and go for the efficiency on the other 5 rooms. As for ISOs and placement, this is great. I like the way it is. I think that all these characters should be brought up into the blue ISO with Weaver and the Eternals brought up into teal gear. They are very powerful, impactful characters. 99 probably brought up to 14 or 15. Doesn't need to go teal gear on him, but he's good too. You want his ability block to land. And then, of course, she's just here for a cleanse and placing vulnerables. So you can keep her as a healer. You could make her a skirmisher for that extra vulnerable, maybe to strip an effect or something like that. But that's about it. All in all, this is okay. So Damian, if you're the big guy, good job. If you're the little guy, pull this team. I'm going to go ahead and give this an A-. I'd just like to see a little bit more work done on it and some critical reasoning as to where you should be using, whether it be defense or offense. And finally, over here, we love to be surprised. It's the Wakandans. I think M'Baku is better as a striker or a fortifier if he's small, and move the Black Panther to the outside. Doesn't really matter. This team is either going to be rolled by the Masters of Evil or it's going to get rolled by the Darkhold. It's too small to be effectual, and it's too late in the game. Thank you, chat. It's too late in the game to be... Oh, man. I love my channel points. It's too late in the game to be developing this team any further. They're a fantastic team, but you don't want to be building them. We only have 2 weeks left with these rules. So... we should be waiting in preparation of the upcoming rules and kind of thinking ahead of what those are going to be and what we should be investing in for those. As soon as we find out, I'll let you know. But we don't want to be investing in Wakanda, and we don't really want to be investing in Eternal Tangled Web. I mean, they're good, so you want to build them to where they're functional because they still have a lot of value. But much like last season, people over-invested in Hero Mutants, and now that those bonuses are gone, they're left with astonishing X-Men that are not being used anywhere. So be weary of the season bonuses. You want to jump in early on those things to get your value. Don't overdo it. And when you get to the end of the season like we're at now, forget building these teams. This one is just too far gone. Great team, but much like the YA, it's too old to be investing in right now. I'm going to give this a B. Need some ISO tweaks and placement, things that aren't really going to matter though, so is what it is. So, this has been DamianBrockkum's Defense Up. If you want your defense featured, be sure to DM me those. The list is actually pretty short right now, and we're adding people to it, so be sure to send me those. We'll get you on the list, we'll get you featured here, and we can go over your roster to see if you've got what it takes to get a good grade in here and stand against some of the biggest ones on your way to Masters. Until then, remember guys, don't just have a good game, be good to yourselves and others too, and I'll see you next time. Bye.